Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and it looks like World of Warcraft is finally coming to consoles. There is definitely a big caveat to this, but it definitely does sound like a catchy, sensational title. But essentially, ever since Microsoft bought Blizzard, players have wondered if WoW would ever come to consoles, because Microsoft owns Xbox, and now Microsoft owns Blizzard, and Blizzard makes World of Warcraft, so could WoW at some point get a console port proper? And it does seem like the current generation of consoles, primarily the Xbox and PlayStation, is eventually going to be rolling into a new generation with some brand new announcements. And apparently, based on some of the information, it does seem like Microsoft's next platform is going to be able to not only run console exclusive games, but it's actually going to have other games that you can run as well, with platforms such as Steam that can be integrated for this, as well as things like Epic Games and even Battle.net. And it has been confirmed in a quote that you will be able to, on this platform, run World of Warcraft through Battle.net specifically. So I guess some could say that technically WoW is coming to consoles, but it's not exactly what you think. And I kind of want to dive into the topic and talk about everything we know about this development so far. As always, if you guys want to keep up with regular updates for World of Warcraft, being the current content like Legion Remix or War Within, potentially future patches, and even expansions like Midnight, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. And while it is kind of fun to title a video like, wow, it's coming to consoles finally, the next console coming from Xbox, from what we know so far, isn't really a console, it's more like a glorified PC. Either or, right now, we do have a new generation of consoles likely being announced either this year or next year, but sometime soon, since this current generation is winding down. It has been winding down. But Xbox, what we know from the recent developments is the new console, the next generation one, is actually going to be functioning closer to that of a proper PC. Like by all means, it sounds like there will be a box that you plug in and play games, but it will have this new feature of full screen that essentially gives you the UI of that of a console, that makes it super streamlined and standardized and really easy for you to get around the menu. But if you want to close that full screen experience and go on the back end, you still have the windows running behind it at all times. And the biggest advantage for this is in a full screen feature, you get access to the Xbox ecosystem, the Xbox store, get your games from there, whatnot. But let's say you want to use something else instead, you can close out the full screen, use it like a proper PC, and you can install other competing platforms on the actual console. Like, you'll be able to download Steam and run Steam games and link a Steam account. You can get Epic Games and run all your games from that account as well. Or the Riot client, which suggests Valorant directly or possibly even League of Legends, as well as Battle.net is another one of those storefronts that will be supported behind this new console PC hybrid combo. So it sounds like they're just adapting it, so there is a console format to it, but it's essentially a glorified PC that can run all the functionalities like a normal PC would be able to. Now, for this console PC hybrid thing they got going on, which is still as saying is a console just with the ability to run Windows properly and all the supports that are run with Windows, so essentially a PC. They did say there's going to be a bunch of different Steam titles that it'll have access to. Things like God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man. So they basically were trying to flex with some of the Sony specific titles on that machine. But it also said directly, you'll be able to play World of Warcraft on this next Xbox console / PC with the Battle.net app and everything. So technically, WoW is coming to a console. Now, there's a pretty big number of players that wondered for a while if WoW would eventually come to consoles at some point in the future. And for the most part, it's been a pipe dream, but there have been a number of little coincidences that could have potentially been leading us to, yeah, this thing is coming to console. There's just way too many little occurrences that when you put them all together, it does feel like they were kind of marching slowly but surely towards a potential console future for World of Warcraft. I mean, when Microsoft acquired Activision and Blizzard, that was potentially an opportunity for them to add console support. War Within brought with it the one-button macro, which simplified a lot of the classes. It doesn't play it super well, and it has this global cooldown penalty behind it. So you're not really going to see this button being played on super high-end content, but it's serviceable in majority content. You could PvP with this, sorta. It won't be super amazing, but it actually is pretty decent enough. And some players have been able to use it in some of the higher-end content, like people PvPing for those elite sets using this one button thing, which It's not terrible, it's just not optimal, but it does work. And if you ever want to put WoW on like a mobile phone or a console, putting a one button that plays your class for you, I mean, that would just be the best combo possible. Midnight as an expansion is going through a lot of class changes, primarily streamlining and making a lot of the classes easier to play, pruning a lot of the rotational abilities that feel like they're just a little bit too much. And while for the most part, a lot of these changes are good, our classes objectively are getting easier to play. Less procs to watch for, a more of a simplified, straightforward rotational flow. There's also naturally less buttons for you to hit when playing your class. So if you ever wanted to make it console viable with, less inputs that you have access to, a smaller pool of rotational abilities would help out in that regard specifically. A lot of the add-ons that you would get from Curse Forge are also being removed in Midnight, and a lot of them are being baked into the game. And in previous times, like for games like Skyrim for instance, people that played on PC could mod their game to look beautiful, but console players couldn't really mod it because there was just no access to it. So then they eventually found a way to integrate mods into the game's engine so you could download mods in-game. And Blizzard here is just adding add-ons into the in-game UI, so if you were to play it on a console, you don't really need to go download details or boss mods because they're already there, just yet another coincidence. The control support for the game has also improved, mostly as an accessibility feature, like if you just cannot play with the keyboard and mouse for disabilities specifically, but the gamepad functionality is there mostly for that, so you can remap the controls and keybinds to different types of inputs in order to be able to experience the game in a variety of different settings. We also have an add-on for console port, which has allowed players to play WoW on a controller. Again, not the most optimal experience for high-end gameplay, but it does work pretty well. And unless this is one of those add-ons that is being cut in Midnight, this add-on is only going to continue to improve and get better in the next expansion with classes being pruned and with the one button. So technically there'll be a little bit more work done in that department specifically. And at the end of the day, if somebody is going to be buying this Xbox PC amalgamation, if they really wanted to do PC gaming, they probably would just get a proper desktop, right? A tower, some monitors, a mouse mat, keyboard, mouse, right? You want to do the whole thing in order to really get into PC gaming. But if somebody's going to be buying this Xbox that can technically do Windows, likely is buying it because it has this console functionality. And if they are playing it like a console, there's a good chance they're not including mouse or keyboard as part of the gameplay. I imagine majority of those players will be playing the game on a controller because that's kind of what the experience you're looking for. So if there are going to be more players that have this Xbox/PC amalgamation that can play WoW together, I'm going to assume the majority of them are probably going to play the game on a controller. So it is then possible that maybe in Midnight or in the future, whenever this new Xbox comes out, we could be seeing more at least controller players in dungeons, raids, or PvP at some point in the future. So it wouldn't be impossible for you to eventually, maybe one day, be doing LFG, like Mythic Plus Dungeons for instance, trying to push a keystone, and somebody in the group is playing on the controller. Maybe you've already met somebody that has played on a controller and you just didn't really notice it. But there's going to be probably more chances of you running into somebody who is playing on this new Xbox/PC and is playing on a controller. So my big point is, even though this thing can't really be called a proper console because it's a console PC hybrid, it is going to be a box. And I imagine that anybody that actually wants to get into PC gaming is just going to buy a PC. But if somebody's going to buy this Xbox specifically, they're likely going to be using it for that console convenience and likely going to be playing whatever games on it on the controller, as most people that get consoles do. So that convenience means likely that if they are playing more games, and if one of those games is WoW, they're likely just going to be playing it on a controller. So while technically you can't really say that WoW is coming to console, we could potentially see in the future an uptick of controller-specific players. Since controllers don't really have like a full chat functionality, I don't really know if they're going to even have the ability to talk. So maybe you'll be running dungeons with people that are not saying a word to each other, not because they don't want to, but because they just can't. You might find players that are jumping around and spinning the character wildly, maybe because they're playing on a controller. Maybe the rotation won't be completely fully optimal or perfect because they're playing it on a controller and maybe using the one button rotation as it is more convenient for that task specifically. And I guess what I'm really trying to say is it's not impossible that we'll be likely seeing more controller/console players from WoW at some point in the future whenever this thing comes out, if it ends up even being all that popular. But with that being said, as always, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give it a like, as it would very much appreciate it. Also, be sure to join our Discord community for any midnight or remakes or War Within updates with the patch 11.27 hopefully hitting sometime soonish, maybe. Definitely let me know your thoughts, what you think about this development, and if you think we'll see like a noticeable uptick of console/controller players at some point throughout midnight. Are you excited about the possibility of more players playing WoW, or are you kind of like worried because you'll have to start scanning the LFG list to make sure that you're getting PC players in your Mythic Plus key to make sure you time it in case like console players are just struggling for one reason or another? Like, are you worried or excited about this development? Definitely let me know in the comments, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.